My son changed the locks on my own restaurant the morning after my wife's funeral. He stood there in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing the suit I bought him, telling me that my 40 years of building this place meant nothing anymore because the deed was in his mother's name. He said I was too old to flip burgers. He said I should go find a retirement home in Arizona where old men belong. He thought he had just inherited a $4 million business and the family house. But 6 days later, when he sat across from our family lawyer with that smug grin still plastered on his face, he learned that greed has a price tag. The lawyer asked him one simple question. Did you read the full trust agreement, Daniel? Because if you had, you'd know you just funded college scholarships for 200 foster kids. Before I tell you how my own son destroyed himself trying to steal my life's work, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments if you've ever been betrayed by someone you raised. My wife Clara passed away on a Wednesday, peacefully, in the hospice bed we had set up in the living room of our home in Austin, Texas. She was 66. Pancreatic cancer. It moved fast, faster than any of us expected. 1 month she was making her famous peach cobbler for the church potluck, and 3 months later she was gone. I held her hand until the very end. I whispered to her that I loved her, that I would take care of everything, that our restaurant would keep serving her recipes to the community she adored. She squeezed my fingers one last time. Then, she was gone. I'm 67 years old. I've been cooking since I was 14, working the line at my uncle's diner in East Texas. Clara and I opened Big Jim's family kitchen in 1985, back when this stretch of road was nothing but dust and cattle ranches. We built it from a food truck into a 200-seat restaurant that's been featured on the Food Network twice. We raised our son Daniel in the back office, doing his homework while we prepped brisket and coleslaw. That restaurant isn't just a business. It's 40 years of my sweat, my burns, my aching knees, my love. Every dollar we ever made went back into that place or into our modest 3-bedroom house 2 miles down the road. Clara handled the paperwork. She was the organized one. The deed, the licenses, the permits, the bank accounts, all in her name for tax purposes because her family had a small inheritance that made the structure cleaner. I never worried about it. We were married for 43 years. What was hers was mine. What was mine was hers. That's how marriage works. That's what I believed. The funeral was on Saturday. Half of Austin showed up, or at least it felt that way. Clara was beloved. She was the one who remembered every customer's birthday, who sent soup to sick neighbors, who organized the charity drives every Thanksgiving. I stood at the front of the church, numb, trying to focus on the pastor's words. But I kept getting distracted by my son. Daniel is 42. He was wearing a black suit that looked new, expensive. His wife Megan was next to him, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, checking her phone every few minutes. They were sitting in the front row, but they weren't grieving. They were waiting. I could see it in the way Daniel kept glancing at his watch, the way Megan whispered to him and nodded toward me. They weren't mourning Clara. They were calculating the payout. After the burial, everyone came back to the house for the reception. I was standing in the kitchen, looking at Clara's apron still hanging on the hook, when Daniel approached me. He didn't hug me. He didn't say, "I'm sorry, Dad," or "She was a wonderful mother." He just leaned against the counter and said, "We need to talk about the restaurant." I blinked at him. Today, the sooner the better. Megan and I have been thinking. The place needs a rebrand. The menu is outdated. We're going to bring in a consultant from Dallas, modernize the whole operation, farm-to-table concept, double the prices, target the tech crowd moving into the area. I stared at my son. My wife wasn't cold in the ground yet, and he was talking about erasing everything she and I had built. "We're not rebranding," I said quietly. "Big Jim's has been Big Jim's for 40 years. Your mother's recipes are the foundation." Daniel laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. "Dad, Mom's recipes are from the 80s. Nobody wants chicken fried steak anymore. They want kale and quinoa. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I have an MBA. An MBA you never used," I reminded him. "You've been borrowing money from us for 10 years. His face hardened. "That's going to change. The restaurant is mine now. Mom left everything to me. It's in the will. You can keep working there if you want, but I'm in charge." I felt the blood drain from my face. What are you talking about? The trust, Dad. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of a document. Mom set it up years ago. Primary beneficiary, Daniel Morrison. That includes the restaurant, the house, and the investment accounts. It's all mine. I grabbed his phone and looked at the screen. It was a page from a trust document, dated 2019, Clara's signature at the bottom. My stomach dropped. She never told me about this, I whispered. Because she knew you'd be difficult, Daniel said, taking his phone back. She wanted to make sure the business stayed in the family, that it wouldn't get tied up in probate if something happened. Well, something happened. And now, I'm making the decisions. This is my restaurant, I said, my voice rising. I built it with my own hands. Your name isn't on any of the paperwork, Daniel said coldly. You're an employee at best. And honestly, Dad, you're 67. How much longer do you really think you can run a kitchen? Your hands shake. You forget orders. You burned a whole batch of ribs last month. That was a lie. I hadn't burned anything. But I could see the narrative forming. He was building a case. He was making me sound incompetent. Megan appeared in the doorway. She was holding a folder. Daniel, I found the spare keys in the office, and the lawyer confirmed the meeting for Monday. Perfect, Daniel said. He looked at me. Dad, Megan and I are going to stay in the house for a few days to help with the transition. You should probably start thinking about your next steps. Maybe a condo near the lake, somewhere quiet, somewhere appropriate for a man your age. This is my house, I said. It was Mom's house, Daniel corrected. And now, it's part of the trust. Which means, it's mine. I'm not kicking you out tonight, Dad. That would be cruel. But by next week, we need to have a serious conversation about your living arrangements. I looked at Megan. She smiled at me, a thin, insincere smile. Don't worry, Jim. We'll find you a nice place. There are some lovely assisted living facilities in Round Rock. Very affordable. Assisted living. I'm 67 years old. I can bench press 180 pounds. I run a professional kitchen 60 hours a week. And they wanted to put me in a nursing home. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the bed Clara and I had shared for decades, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how my own son had become a stranger. The next morning, Sunday, I woke up early. Old habits. I was going to make coffee and then head to the restaurant to prep for the week. We had a catering order for a company picnic on Tuesday. But when I walked into the kitchen, Daniel and Megan were already there. Daniel was holding a document, looking pleased with himself. Dad, I need you to sign this, he said. What is it? Power of attorney. It'll make the transition smoother. Let me handle the business accounts without having to get your signature every time. I looked at the document. It would give Daniel complete control over everything. I would have no say in any decision. No, I said. Daniel's expression shifted. The mask of politeness cracked. Dad, don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm not signing anything until I talk to a lawyer. Our lawyer is handling everything, Megan said. Robert Chen. He's been the family attorney for 15 years. Then I'll get my own lawyer, I said. Daniel slammed his hand on the counter. The sound echoed through the kitchen. You're being ridiculous. You're an old man who flips pancakes. You don't have the mental capacity to understand complex estate planning. Just sign the paper and let us handle things. I looked at my son, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the boy I had taken to his first baseball game, the boy I had given everything to. I said no. Daniel's eyes went cold. Fine, then get out. Excuse me? Get out of the house. You have 1 hour to pack your things. If you're not gone, I'm calling the police and reporting you for trespassing. Megan nodded. The trust gives Daniel immediate rights to the property. You have no legal standing here, Jim. It's better if you just leave quietly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're throwing me out of my own home? The day after your mother's funeral? It's not your home, Daniel said. It never was. You were just living here because Mom let you. Now she's gone, and I'm making different arrangements. He pulled out his phone. You have 5 minutes. I suggest you start packing. I packed what I could fit in 2 duffel bags. My clothes, some photos, Clara's recipe book, The handwritten one she started in 1982. Daniel tried to stop me from taking that. Those recipes are intellectual property of the restaurant, he said. They stay here. Your mother wrote these for me, I said, clutching the worn notebook. They're love letters in ingredient form. You're not taking them. He grabbed my arm. Hard. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes that scared me. Not just greed, contempt. He didn't see me as his father anymore. He saw me as an obstacle. I pulled my arm free. I took the recipe book. I walked out the front door. Megan was standing on the porch, filming me with her phone. Just in case you try to claim we didn't give you time to leave, she said sweetly. We're documenting everything. I looked at the house where I had lived for 38 years. The garden Clara had planted. The porch swing where we used to sit and watch the sunset. The wind chime our granddaughter had made in preschool. You'll regret this, Daniel, I said. He laughed. I doubt that. Go find a motel, Dad. I'll have someone send you the rest of your stuff when I get around to it. I walked to my truck. It was the one thing that was purely mine. An old Ford F-150 I had paid cash for in 2008. I threw my bags in the back and drove away. I drove for 20 minutes without knowing where I was going. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a Motel 6 near the highway. $59 a night. I paid with my personal credit card, the one I used for groceries, and prayed it would go through. It did. Barely. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and old smoke. The carpet was stained. The bedspread was thin. I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at the wall. I was 67 years old. I had worked every day of my life since I was 14. I had built a restaurant that fed thousands of families. I had raised a son, paid for his education, bailed him out of debt more times than I could count. And now I was sitting in a motel room with $340 in my checking account, wondering if I could afford breakfast. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, I felt something harder forming in my chest. A cold, clear focus. A survival instinct I hadn't needed in decades. I picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts. I found the name I was looking for. Hector Reyes. He was a lawyer, a real one, not the family attorney Daniel had mentioned. Hector and I had served on the Austin Restaurant Association board together. He specialized in estate litigation. He was a bulldog in a courtroom. I called him. Jim? Hector answered on the third ring. I heard about Clara. I'm so sorry. Hector, I need your help, I said. My son just threw me out of my house. He claims he inherited everything through a trust. He's trying to take the restaurant. There was a pause. Tell me everything. I talked for 30 minutes. I told him about the document Daniel had shown me, about the power of attorney, about the threats to call the police. Hector listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Jim, did Clara ever mention a second trust? One she might have set up more recently? No, I said. Why? Because I helped her draft one, Hector said. About 8 months ago. She came to me in confidence. She said she was worried about Daniel. She said he had been pressuring her for money, making threats. She wanted to protect you. She wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, you would be taken care of. My heart started pounding. What are you saying? I'm saying that the trust Daniel has is outdated. There's a newer one that supersedes it. Clara named me as the executor, and there are some clauses in that trust that your son is definitely not going to like. What kind of clauses? Hector's voice was grim. Let's just say Clara was a very wise woman, and she knew exactly what her son was capable of. Meet me at my office tomorrow morning, Jim. We have a lot to discuss. I didn't sleep that night either, but for a different reason. This time, I was thinking. The next morning, Monday, I drove to Hector's office in downtown Austin. It was a modest space on the 4th floor of an old building, but the man inside was anything but modest. Hector Reyes had won multi-million-dollar cases against corporations and cartels alike. He was in his 60s, stocky, with a gray mustache and eyes that missed nothing. He sat me down and placed a thick folder on the desk between us. This, he said, is the Clara Morrison Family Preservation Trust, dated January 15th of this year. It supersedes any previous estate documents. It was notarized, witnessed, and filed with the county. It is ironclad. He opened the folder and turned it so I could see. Clara's signature was at the bottom, elegant and familiar. The trust places all assets, including the restaurant, the house, and the investment accounts, totaling approximately $4.2 million, under the control of a single trustee. Who's the trustee? I asked. Hector smiled. You are, Jim. I stared at him. Me? Clara wanted to make sure you were protected. She knew Daniel would try something the moment she was gone, so she structured the trust so that you have complete control over all distributions. Daniel is listed as a beneficiary, but he only receives funds at your discretion. You can give him $1 million, or you can give him nothing. The choice is entirely yours. My mind was reeling, but he has a copy of an older trust. He thinks he owns everything. He has a piece of paper that's legally worthless, Hector said. The moment this trust was filed, the old one was revoked. He's been making plans based on a fantasy. So the house, the restaurant, it's all still mine? It's all in the trust, and you control the trust. Effectively, yes, it's yours. But there's more. Hector's expression grew serious. Clara added a protection clause. She called it the dignity clause. If you, as the trustee, are ever removed from the family home against your will, or if Daniel engages in any form of elder abuse, emotional manipulation, or financial coercion, his status as beneficiary is permanently terminated. I sat back in my chair. Permanently? Irrevocably. The funds would then be redirected to a charitable foundation Clara established, the Morrison Educational Foundation. It provides college scholarships to foster children aging out of the system. Clara volunteered at a group home for 20 years. Those kids meant everything to her. I thought about Clara, her kindness, her foresight. She had seen this coming. She had prepared for it. She had protected me from beyond the grave. What about everything Daniel has done? I asked. Throwing me out, changing the locks, trying to take over the restaurant. Hector pulled out his phone and placed it on the desk. I've been in contact with some mutual friends. It seems your son has been busy. He showed me a series of photos and posts from Daniel's social media. In one photo, Daniel was standing behind the grill at Big Jim's, wearing a chef's coat, grinning at the camera. The caption read, "New management, new vision, big things coming." In another, Megan was sitting at the bar, holding a glass of wine. The caption read, "Saying goodbye to the old, hello to the new era." There was a video of them walking through my restaurant, pointing at things, making plans. "This wall comes down," Daniel was saying. "We'll put in a juice bar here. The whole aesthetic needs to change. No more of that old country diner garbage." Old country diner garbage. That was Clara's life's work. That was my life's work. "He's already ordered new menus," Hector said. "He's talked to contractors about renovation. He's fired 3 of your longtime employees, including Maria, your head cook. Maria had been with us for 22 years. She was like family." "He fired Maria?" I whispered. "He told her the restaurant was under new management and her services were no longer required. She called me yesterday, crying. I felt something snap inside me. The cold focus sharpened into something harder, something final. "What do we do?" I asked. Hector closed the folder. "We let him dig his grave a little deeper. The more he does now, the more evidence we have of his intentions. He's already triggered the dignity clause by throwing you out. His beneficiary status is already terminated. He just doesn't know it yet. When do we tell him?" "I've scheduled a meeting for Thursday. I told Daniel it was for the official reading of Clara's estate documents and the transfer of assets. He thinks he's coming to collect a check. Instead, he's going to learn what happens when you betray your own father." I spent the next 3 days in that motel room, watching, waiting, documenting. A friend of mine, Tommy Chen, worked at the restaurant as a line cook. He texted me updates throughout the day. Daniel came in every morning acting like he owned the place, because he thought he did. He yelled at the staff. He changed the suppliers. He ordered a $15,000 espresso machine for the new concept without consulting anyone. He also took $50,000 out of the restaurant's operating account and transferred it to his personal bank. Tommy found the receipt in the office trash. Megan wasn't idle either. She was redecorating my house. She posted photos on Instagram. New furniture. New paint. She had thrown out Clara's quilts, the ones her grandmother had made. She called them depressing. I saved every photo, every post, every receipt Tommy could find. On Wednesday night, Daniel posted a video to his followers. He was sitting in my chair, at my desk, in my restaurant. He was drinking bourbon from a crystal glass that had been a gift from a supplier for our 30th anniversary. "Big announcement coming soon," he said to the camera. "The old Big Jim's is dead. Long live the new Big Jim's. Sometimes you have to clear out the deadwood to make room for growth." Deadwood. He was talking about me, his father, the man who had built everything he was now claiming as his own. I closed my laptop. I lay back on the motel bed. I thought about Clara. I thought about the man our son had become. I wondered where we had gone wrong. Had we given him too much? Had we made him believe he was entitled to everything without earning any of it? I didn't have answers. But I had Thursday. Thursday morning arrived gray and cool. I put on my best suit, the one Clara had bought me for our 40th anniversary. I knotted my tie carefully. I looked at myself in the motel mirror. I didn't look like a beaten old man. I looked like a man with a purpose. I drove to Hector's office. I arrived at 9:30, half an hour before the scheduled meeting. Hector was already there, the documents spread out on the conference table. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I've been ready for 3 days," I said. At 9:55, the receptionist buzzed. "Mr. Reyes, Mr. Morrison and his wife are here. Send them in." The door opened. Daniel walked in first, confident, smiling, wearing another expensive suit. Megan followed, carrying a designer bag that probably cost more than my truck payment. They saw me and stopped. "What is he doing here?" Daniel demanded. "Mr. Morrison is a party to this estate," Hector said calmly. "Please, sit down." Daniel and Megan exchanged looks. Then they sat across from me, their expressions shifting from surprise to annoyance. They thought I was here to beg, to negotiate, to accept whatever scraps they might throw me. "Let's make this quick," Daniel said. "I have contractors coming to the restaurant at noon. We're starting demolition on the old kitchen." "You're not demolishing anything," Hector said. Daniel laughed. "Excuse me? I'm the beneficiary of my mother's trust. The restaurant is mine. I can do whatever I want with it." Hector opened the folder. "Actually, Daniel, you're not the beneficiary anymore, and the restaurant was never yours." The room went silent. Hector pulled out the blue-bound document. "This is the Clara Morrison Family Preservation Trust, dated January of this year. It supersedes the 2019 document you've been relying on. That document was revoked when this one was filed." Daniel grabbed the document. His eyes scanned the pages rapidly. His face went pale. "This can't be right," he said. "Mom would have told me." "Your mother kept it confidential because she knew exactly what you would do," Hector said. "She knew you would try to manipulate her, pressure her. She had 8 months to change her mind. She didn't." Megan was reading over Daniel's shoulder. "It says Jim is the trustee, with absolute discretion over distributions." "What does that mean?" "It means your father-in-law controls every penny," Hector said. "Daniel receives nothing unless Jim approves it. And given recent events, I suspect Jim won't be approving much." Daniel looked at me. The smugness was gone. There was fear in his eyes now. Dad, come on, we can work this out." I was stressed. The funeral, the grief. I wasn't thinking clearly. "We can put this behind us." I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. "There's more," Hector continued. "The trust contains a dignity clause. If the trustee is removed from the family home against his will or subjected to any form of elder abuse, the beneficiary's status is terminated. Permanently." Daniel's face went gray. "Terminated? You threw your father out of his home the day after his wife's funeral," Hector said. "You changed the locks on his restaurant. You fired his employees. You took $50,000 from the business account." He placed a stack of printed screenshots on the table. "You posted about it on social media. You called him Deadwood. You called his life's work garbage." Daniel stared at the printouts. His hands were shaking. The dignity clause has been triggered, Hector said. As of this moment, you have no claim to any assets in the Clara Morrison Family Preservation Trust. Megan grabbed Daniel's arm. What does that mean? Where does the money go? Hector smiled. To the foster kids. What? Clara established the Morrison Educational Foundation. In the event of beneficiary forfeiture, all trust assets are liquidated and transferred to the foundation. College scholarships for foster children aging out of the system. Your mother cared about kids who had nothing, kids who had to earn everything the hard way. Unlike some people. Daniel stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is fraud. You forged this. My mother would never do this to me. I'm her son. I'm her only child. You were her son, I said quietly. It was the first time I had spoken since they arrived. But you stopped being her child a long time ago. You became something else. A parasite. A user. She saw it. I didn't want to see it, but she was right. Dad, please, Daniel said. His voice cracked. I made mistakes. I can change. Just give me another chance. I'll move out of the house. I'll give you back the restaurant. Things can go back to the way they were. I shook my head. No, Daniel, they can't. You didn't just take things that weren't yours. You tried to erase me. You tried to put me in a nursing home so you could spend money you didn't earn, to throw away your mother's quilts. You called her recipes garbage. I stood up. You didn't want a father. You wanted an ATM. Well, the ATM is closed. Permanently. Daniel lunged at me. Not to embrace me. To attack me. You worthless old man. I'll destroy you. I'll sue you into the ground. Security was there before he could reach me. Hector had called them in advance. 2 large men in suits grabbed Daniel and held him back. Get your hands off me, Daniel screamed. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to burn that restaurant down. Hector was recording everything on his phone. Thank you for that, Daniel. I'm sure the police will find it very interesting. Megan hadn't moved. She was staring at the documents, her face blank with shock. Then she turned to Daniel. You idiot, she hissed. You told me the money was guaranteed. You said there was no way this could go wrong. Shut up, Megan. No, you shut up. She stood up. I married you because you said you were going to inherit millions. I put up with your mother's boring dinners and your father's old man stories for 10 years because you promised me it would pay off. And now you're telling me we get nothing? We'll fight this, Daniel said desperately. We'll get our own lawyers. With what money? Megan screamed. We're broke, Daniel. We owe $200,000 on credit cards. We took out a second mortgage to cover your investment opportunities that went nowhere. We have nothing. She grabbed her purse. I'm done. I'm calling my lawyer. I want a divorce. She walked out of the conference room without looking back. Daniel sagged in the security guard's grip. All the fight went out of him. He looked small, pathetic, lost. Dad, he whispered, please, I have nowhere to go. I looked at my son. I remembered teaching him to throw a baseball. I remembered cheering at his graduation. I remembered the hope I had felt when he was born, the dreams of who he might become. You have exactly what you gave me, I said. Nothing. Good luck finding a motel. I turned and walked out of the conference room. I didn't look back. I drove to the restaurant, my restaurant. I parked in my usual spot. I walked through the back door. The kitchen staff saw me and froze. Mr. Jim? Maria was there. Tommy must have warned her something was happening. What's going on? I smiled at her. The first real smile I had managed in a week. I'm back, Maria, and I'm not going anywhere. The staff erupted in cheers. Maria hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Tommy was grinning from ear to ear. I walked through the restaurant, touching the familiar surfaces. The prep tables, the fryers, the old jukebox Clara had insisted on keeping. Everything was still here, battered, threatened, but still standing. I went to the office and sat down in my chair. I pulled out Clara's recipe book. I opened it to the first page, where she had written a dedication in 1982. For Jim, my partner in everything. May we feed the world together. I closed the book and held it against my chest. I let the tears come finally. Tears for Clara. Tears for the son I had lost. Tears for the life that had almost been stolen from me. But also tears of gratitude. for a wife who had loved me enough to protect me, for friends who had stood by me, for a second chance I didn't know I needed. That night, I drove back to my house. Hector had changed the locks again. The new key worked perfectly. I walked through the rooms, seeing the damage Megan had done, the thrown-out quilts, the replaced furniture, the erased history. I would fix it, slowly, piece by piece. I would bring Clara back into these walls. I would hang her photos again. I would restore her garden. I stood on the back porch as the sun set over the Texas hills. I thought about the foster kids who would get scholarships because of Clara's foresight. Hundreds of young people who would get a chance at a better life, funded by the money my son had tried to steal. Clara had turned his greed into hope, his betrayal into opportunity. She had found a way to make something beautiful out of something ugly. I raised an invisible glass to the darkening sky. "You were always the smart one, Clara," I whispered. "I should have listened to you sooner." Daniel called me twice that night. I didn't answer. He sent texts begging for forgiveness, for money, for another chance. I deleted them without reading. Megan filed for divorce 3 days later. The credit card companies started calling. The bank began foreclosure proceedings on the house they had bought together. Daniel had to move in with a friend from college, sleeping on a couch at 42 years old. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he got a job at a fast food chain a few months later. Entry level, minimum wage. Flipping the burgers he had mocked me for flipping. Maybe he'll learn something. Maybe he won't. That's not my responsibility anymore. As for me, I reopened Big Jim's with a special dinner. Maria cooked Clara's famous recipes. The community came out in force. We raised $20,000 for the Morrison Educational Foundation that night alone. I still work the kitchen every day. My knees ache, my hands shake a little. But I'm not useless. I'm not deadwood. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. People ask me sometimes if I regret cutting off my son, if I feel guilty about the scholarships instead of leaving him something. I tell them what Clara told me once, years ago, when she first started worrying about Daniel's character. "We gave him everything, Jim," she said, "except the one thing that matters. We never taught him that love has to be earned. We never showed him that respect is a two-way street. That's our mistake, but it doesn't have to be his future. Maybe losing everything will teach him what having everything never could." She was right. She was always right. If you're watching this, and you have children who treat you like an ATM, who only call when they need something, who see you as an obstacle instead of a parent, hear me clearly. You don't owe them your dignity. You don't owe them your life's work. You don't owe them anything they haven't earned. Blood may be thicker than water, but respect is thicker than blood. If you like this story, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. And remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself, even at 67, especially at 67. This is Big Jim, signing off from Austin, Texas. The burgers are still cooking, the doors are still open, and the old man is still standing.